What was the most legendary thing a student did at school? Story 1. My friend once was pissed off at the rest of us guys, 5 of us. He chased us into the bathroom because he wanted to be a tough guy and thought one of us was hiding in a stall. He says, "Peekaboo, I see you," and kicks the stall door in on a teacher that we all knew, taking a crap. The teacher said, "I see you too, Nathan. Now close the door." I will die the day I forget about that. I had a principal do something similar. I was the one pissed off because I was being harassed and bullied while trying to take a crap. I had severe anger issues as a kid, so I pulled my pants up, yelled at them, kicked the stall wide open, and chased them to the big, heavy steel bathroom door. After they got out, it slammed shut in front of me, so I kicked it too. Except it had a vent panel at the bottom, and that went sailing across the hall into the opposite wall. The principal's office was just down the hall, and he stepped out, saw it was me, and said in a completely deadpan manner, "Come see me when you get the chance, please." I lose it every time I think back to that, but he was the person that helped me start to cope with my anger. He never once blamed or scolded me. He was always kind and helpful and tried to guide me through what I was dealing with. Always had a seat reserved in his office no matter the time of day. I'm glad to have such a funny and heartwarming memory of him. Sort of the reverse happened to my brother. One of his buddies used to knock on this one teacher's door every day to mess with her and then run off. So they're walking by and the buddy knocks super loud and they bolt across the hall and up the staircase. At the top of the staircase, as you turn the corner, there's a long hallway and also a men's bathroom just a few feet from the top of the staircase. Turns out this teacher had had enough of his crap and had been waiting near the door and was chasing them, pretty hot on their heels as my brother tells it. He said she was shockingly fast. She was a skinny, almost skeletal-looking woman who was always quite condescending, but in my experience that is the norm for Catholic school theology teachers. Anyways, with the teacher hot on their heels, my brother bolts into the bathroom, goes into a stall, rips his pants down, and sits on the toilet. His buddy had turned the corner and stopped to take a casual walk while the teacher had come up and saw the bathroom door closing. The teacher busts into the bathroom and kicks open my brother's stall, only to find him sitting down, full dong out. Their eyes lock for a moment and then her face drops. She ran out of that bathroom and nothing more came of it. Story 2. This kid in my class put the school for sale on Craigslist. He provided the school's attendance office number as a point of contact, because everyone hated the receptionist there. They were getting calls from interested buyers for days who wanted to buy multiple acres of property with a big swimming pool and a track. Some kids put up Craigslist ads for free brand new TVs with my school's number listed as the contact, and they received thousands of calls by like 10 a.m. It was legendary. Our attendance lady was awesome. Would go to my friend's aunt's diner for breakfast on Fridays, come in late and bring her a breakfast platter in exchange for excused passes for the tardiness. Story 3. My English teacher was close to retirement and had really poor eyesight. A mate started the lesson on the right side of the room and managed to shuffle both himself and his desk to the back of the room and then over to the left. He then managed to climb through the window, sauntered around the building, came back into the room, and apologized for being late. Yeah, teachers who can't see properly can be pretty funny. I had a teacher like that. During that class, a classmate from our year had a free period and lived too far away from the school to realistically go home. But he had friends in that class, so he just came to that class. In the teacher's defense, it was a fairly big class, at least 25 kids, and the kid wasn't disruptive or anything. He didn't actually participate in anything, he just sat there and occasionally talked to his friends while they were working on tasks. It took the teacher several visits to notice that visitor. He seriously didn't notice for several lessons that there was a kid he didn't know. If the teacher was close to retirement, he probably just didn't give a rip. I had a similar situation. People swapped seats all the time. Fun was had by all. At the end of the year, he smiles and says, "By the way, I noticed each and every time y'all moved," to the dumbfounded looks of the whole class. We had a similar situation. Our math teacher once didn't notice several students slide themselves out of a small window and run around on the game field. Like a minute after they left, she got up and closed the window and said, "Well, now we can get on with things," and got to teaching. Don't get me wrong, she was a crap teacher, but that was probably the best move I ever saw her pull. The dickheads got to mess about in a field, and the rest of us got to get on with our work without them causing distractions. And she got rid of them without going through the kicked out of class rigmarole. Okay, this is weird. This post might actually be about me. Would it have been around 2004? We had an English teacher that had to be almost 80. We all checked in for class and the teacher put some pointless video on. Throughout the video, I slowly inched close to the window until I finally reached the big heaters that schools have and moved from my desk to sit on that. Then I unlatched the window really slowly until I finally hopped out into the courtyard and ran around. Walked back in through the school's front door and then came back in like 10 minutes later, and he thanked me for being such a responsible student and coming back from the bathroom so quickly. Story 4. Teacher everyone hated just cause he was a pure bully. We had a fair snowfall and he was on the yard patrol. This shy kid launched the perfect snowball 40 feet and it went into his cup of juice, splashing out and soaking him. The kid went from 0 to hero real quick. I had a similar story at my high school where my 9th grade business teacher liked to belittle students and put them down. The teacher once threw a foam apple at me in class for not paying attention, and I got pissed and threw it back at him as hard as I could. I missed badly and hit the ceiling. The apple then bounced into his cup of coffee and splattered all over his desk. People still remember that by the time I graduated, and not gonna lie, I had no regrets. One winter storm, we were having a snowball fight. The snow was wet, perfect for snowballs. I made this perfect one while sneaking around my neighbor's house. I crept down his driveway and got behind him by 30-ish feet. As I called his name, I chucked it. The timing was perfect. Just as he turned, it punched him in the cheek. It exploded perfectly all over his face with a sound you only hear in the movies. He was stunned, processing what just happened. I was like, oh crap, and hauled ass because he was way older than me. He finally caught me about 2 hours later and threw a bunch of snow down my shirt. At my school in the UK, we used to have double doors leading out the back to the bike lockers. On a rare snowy day, 2 teachers went out the door together. Miss Hughes, a hard-ass Scouse lady who everyone loved, told my dad she'd break my arm if I kept talking in class during a parent-teacher day, and Mr. Elcock, a very disliked teacher, cause he was a prick. As the 2 of them exit side by side, snowballs start flying from everyone. Not one of them hit Miss Hughes, all perfectly crashing into Mr. Elcock. Truly a moment I will never forget. Story 5. This kid once brought a backpack full, and I mean completely full, of marbles to school. He went to the main staircase near the front up to the 3rd floor and dumped the whole bag over the stairwell. How those marbles didn't break the glass trophy case at the bottom is beyond me, but marbles went everywhere. Surprisingly, he never got caught. He either managed to run to one of the stairwells at the end of the hall to get to the bottom before teachers had time to react, or he hid somewhere until the first bell rang. A senior at my high school brought a bowling ball for class one day near the end of the year. It was a 2-story school with one staircase at the very end of a hallway that ran the entire length of the school. Mid-class, he rolled it down the steps. It went clanging down and then careened the entire length of the school. You could hear it rolling, an ominous low rumble that amazingly no teacher went to inspect. The entire school could hear it rolling down the hallway until finally it reached the front pane glass door at the front of the school and shattered the thing into a million pieces. He was never caught. This happened at my school too. One girl got hit in the eye with one, so they went over the announcements. If anybody throws one more marble in this school, you are in serious trouble. Well, I was in the cafeteria trying to get the marble to bounce in a Turner's tea carton, and the next thing you know, I heard, 412 gauge, are you that stupid? All ended well though. Story 6. A kid hit the fire alarm when the mayor was visiting our school. For context, we had an assembly the week before where we were specifically told not to hit the fire alarm during the mayor's visit unless there was an actual fire, as it was a common occurrence at our school to just hit the fire alarm whenever. We had a kid do this when our state's Supreme Court was doing a presentation or visiting or something. The staff was furious. Everyone knew who did it, and they tried to prove it was him. Saw LEOs dusting the handle for prints. There was an old rumor that when you pull the handle it sprays like an invisible ink, visible to blacklight on your hand. I don't know if that's true, but I know the kid used his shirt sleeve to cover his hand when he pulled it, so there weren't any prints. I pulled the fire alarm once, and the principal came into our room and lectured all of us. He said, I know it was someone in this room. Who was it? Nobody said anything. He said, okay, fine. Well, if you don't want to tell me now, come by my office and tell me during the passing period. So some girl went and ratted on me during the passing period. I got called up during my next class and the school cop was talking to me about how it was a waste of resources and all that. I just said I understood and apologized, and he let me go without discipline. I never pulled the fire alarm, but I messed around with the fire hose once. In my school, we had fire hoses recessed into the wall behind a thin metal door. No fire extinguishers or actual fire hoses throughout the school, so I opened the valve just a crack so the water would trickle in. Then I buggered off. Walked by about 45 minutes later to see that the hose had filled with water and exploded out of the wall. In my school about 2 years ago, I was joking with my friends about one of us pulling the fire alarm. I ended up pulling it during the bell ringing for recess ending. I was nervous, time stopped, everything went silent, and it didn't work. We were disappointed but relieved it didn't work because our school had cameras which were recording everything. My dumbass was gonna tell our teacher and then realized that if I did, I'd get in trouble for pulling it for no reason. Story 7. The senior prank one year was to hire a mariachi band to follow our principal around all day. He loved it. Went from classroom to classroom so everyone could see and take pictures and videos and have a fun break from class. During my freshman year, a couple of seniors decided to put super glue in all of the locks on the brand new edition, causing thousands of dollars of damage between broken windows and new locks. The culprits were never caught. They would have faced actual criminal charges if they were, and senior pranks were effectively banned at least through the year I graduated. Story 8. A special needs kid got a 2-day in-school suspension because he threw a sharpened pencil into the drop ceiling tile. He saw a friend of mine do it and thought it was the coolest thing ever. A kid on the football team heard about what happened and protested the suspension directly to the assistant principal. The assistant principal stuck firm to his decision and threatened, and if anyone else gets caught, it will be out-of-school suspensions. The following Monday, the entire second floor was closed down for the morning. Come to find out, the kid and the football team got into the school over the weekend and just blanketed the entire second floor with sharpened pencils. The video of it was stellar. I also have a similar one. We would do pencils, but our favorite was bending paper clips and shooting them with rubber bands at each other and into the ceilings. The entire school had paper clips riddled throughout the ceiling tiles by the end of the year. We never forgot because a legend in sweatpants without pockets did it, and then hid his rubber band in his desk afterward. You could hear the thwap of a paperclip piercing the ceiling tile mid-class, and then a teacher turned around and accused him and told him to empty his pockets. He said he didn't have pockets, but he was a few rows back and the teacher couldn't see, so he pretended to be really scared and took his sweatpants off mid-class and handed them to her. She was mortified, and there was a memo from administration that went around to parents about what happened that stated they wouldn't ask kids to empty their pockets moving forward, which essentially gave us carte blanche to mess stuff up. This was 7th to 8th grade in the early 2000s for reference. The trend of flipping pencils to the ceiling hit my school in 7th grade. I tried so many times but couldn't land one. Then I thought about this MacGyver episode where he used the bungee from a jacket hood and a flashlight to shoot tranquilizer darts. So I took a rubber band and a cardboard tube from the bottom of a pants clothes hanger and fashioned the perfect pencil shooter. The first time I shot it, I swear the pencil went halfway into the tile with a huge thud, and I was grinning ear to ear, but it was loud as heck. I should have stopped there, but I needed to show off. Naturally, it was only a few minutes before I was caught. When they asked where I got the idea, and I said MacGyver, they were not impressed at all. Straight to jail. Story 9. The teacher tries to open the door, but it does not move. The teacher says he'll ask the maintenance dudes to help open it. While he's away, the dude tries to force the door open, instead falls through the door as he just creates a hole. Doing so, however, opens the door. The teacher comes back without a maintenance guy. The teacher blanks for a moment and then says, "Thanks for opening the door. I'll need to know who to thank." No one answers, but only one dude has pieces of wood in his hair, so he gets caught. A kid in middle school got fleeced by the vending machine, so he does the usual thing, bang on the glass, try rocking the machine, etc. Don't do this, by the way, they're heavy AF. Decides his last resource is to body slam it. Sails clear through the glass. No idea what kind of trouble he got in, but it was hilarious seeing the situation go south so fast. He later got in more trouble, falling out of the ceiling in the teacher's lounge. We had these weird doors in the locker room, like they side 6 square places where glass once was, but the glass was removed and replaced with wood. For whatever reason, 13-year-old boys are pretty stupid, it was cool to be the first one to get to the locker room, and part of the tradition was you ran into the door at full speed. so that it whipped open and hit the back wall, making a loud thud. Well, one day, we all leave the gym and I hear a light thud, followed by people screaming, "Coach, come here now!" Seems the first one there ran into the door, placing each of his hands on one of the wooden panels. Well, running at full force, he managed to knock those two panels in, thus both his arms went through the door. His face planted into the wood and then tripped/fell as the door opened, somewhat. He had a bloody nose and some scratched up arms with small cuts. "I just pushed it open." We were all laughing as he said that. One time in 7th or 8th grade, a group of maybe 5 of us were walking a little behind the rest of the class as we switched from one class to the other. We all had our books and binders, hands full. A hall door was closing before us stragglers, so the kid closest stuck his foot out to catch it, and somehow hit it just right that the glass splintered like a bullet hit it. It was hilarious at the time. Only us last few even saw it because the teacher was in front of the line. Story 10. Not mine, but someone superglued the computer mice, or mouses, to the desks in the computer lab. That was my son. My son did that. He never got caught, just told me long after the fact. Not nearly as legendary, but we used to enjoy pranking our classmates in computer class by switching the mice before they got there. Basically, I have the mouse for the computer beside me and they have mine. But they don't realize it because the cords are behind the monitors. This was way back in the days when mice had cords but no lasers. It really only lasts 30 seconds tops, but it's more amusing than computer class. We'd also take off the keys and put them back on in alphabetical order. Yeah, we were really a rough crowd, clearly. Oh man, computer lab pranks. I remember creating a batch file and disguising it as one of the files used for our activity for the day. The file was set to open all the porn pics hidden on that particular machine. Who put it there, I can't recall. Our teacher was furious, and since PCs were really slow machines back then, they became unresponsive as he tried to close them. He just asked everyone to get out of the room instead while he dealt with it. My friend got the blame, but didn't really get into too much trouble as far as I know. We had some asshole students at the community college I worked at that kept stealing the mouse balls, pre-laser mice. The whole tech team walked around with a few spare mouse balls in our pockets every day. An instructor would see you and pull you into class to fix the mouse. It was far easier to keep them on you instead of having to go back into the IT office up to half a mile away to get one. We were so happy when the laser mice started to replace the old ball style. Story 11. The kid broke into the PA speaker room, or whatever it's called, locked himself in, and started publicly dismissing everyone's future detention sentences one by one. Then he started to just burp into the mic before we heard the teachers and the principal break in. The principal shouted, "You damn!" and then it got cut off. Hacking into the PA system is much easier. A friend and I spliced into the PA system and played the first Adam Sandler album during test time on a Friday. As far as I know, they never found out who did it. Story 12. Maybe not legendary, but an interesting and funny experiment. There were 3 high schools in my hometown, 2 of them both named after famous historical figures of said town. Were in a sort of rivalry with each other. Nothing serious, but the students would casually trash talk the other school a lot, mostly for good fun. Each school had a display case with a bust of their respective historical namesake somewhere in the building. They were just some decorations, objects that you would pass by every single day and pay little attention to. So we figured we'd test how little attention people paid these things. So one night, a few buddies of mine and I got together. Most of us were from my school, but we had a few inside men from the other one as well. We split up into 2 teams, got access to both buildings simultaneously, picked open the very cheap locks on the display cases, grabbed the busts, and switched them. Keep in mind, these schools were not that close to one another, and none of us had been old enough to drive at that point, so we had to carry these limestone busts through half the town. We then locked the busts into the display cases again and left. We had managed completely non-destructive entry to both schools, so nobody ever found out. It took almost an entire school year for anyone to notice. To this day, no teacher has ever found out who was responsible. But no damage was done, so they didn't try too hard to figure it out. Story 13. It was legendarily stupid. We had mandatory swimming classes in my sophomore year of high school. Anyways, 3 days a week, the school was getting bomb threats, and all of us would have to leave class to go to the gym. The threats always happened at the same time. This went on for weeks and weeks. It turns out that there was this kid who didn't want to swim and who was using a payphone down the block to call in the threats. This was 1985. He got suspended for 2 weeks and had to go to gym for summer school. He is a legend to this day, yet I can't remember his name. I had a buddy in my freshman year of college who was still dating in high school, his sweetheart, who was now a senior in high school in his hometown. He went back there during spring break, and since he had off school, and she didn't, he called in a bomb threat so the school would be evacuated so that he could spend the day with her. He got caught, and something like 8 months in jail, and he got expelled from our college for this, as well, since I believed it is a federal crime. Even if it's not, he still got expelled. I graduated in 1986. When I was a sophomore, people kept calling in bomb threats from the payphones outside the main office. We'd evacuate the school and hang out in the parking lot down at the junior high until they swept the school and gave the all clear. If it was late enough in the day, if you drove, you could just go home. I don't remember how many there were before they got tired of it and decided to catch whoever it was by not evacuating us and waiting for them to ask why we weren't being evacuated before the bomb went off. Good thing it wasn't a real one that time. I went to grade class inside of a community college, and this same thing happened. It went on for 3 weeks until they found him via camera at a payphone. He would show up every morning while we were outside before they told us to go home again. This was like 2002. He got in serious trouble and locked up for a few years over that. It was clear it was someone in our class. We were the only ones not paying for it. We used to get bomb threats called in every time my 9th grade biology class had a test. This would have been around 1994 to 1995. I assumed that whoever called them in was in that class too, but I never brought that to anyone's attention because I was seriously struggling with that class and needed the extra time to study. What was really stupid was that they always evacuated us to the football stadium while they cleared the rest of the campus. If someone had really wanted to blow us all up, they could have just planted the bombs there and we would have been sitting ducks. Story 14. Picked up the front end of the tractor, deadlift style, with the teacher sitting in the driver's seat of the tractor. The tractor was part of the AG department. It was a rural school. What the hell? Are we talking like a big-ass tractor or one of the smaller ones? A lot of tractors have weights on the front end to keep the torque from their big-ass rear tires from flipping them over. These weights are normally removable for maintenance and/or transport, and without them, the front of the tractor is comparatively light. Without the weights attached, my great-uncle used to lift the front of his tractor with a 350-pound rated jack. I was friends with some of the wrestlers during my high school days, and at least a couple of them could have handled that. So my grandmother was young and brand new to teaching and looked out her window on the first day of class to see a dude lifting up the front of a car. A little while later, he sat down in her class. This kid was always a troublemaker and a notorious class clown. Later that year, he put a naked picture of his older brother in her desk drawer. She was engaged at the time to some guy named Will, and the formerly mentioned older brother said, "I bet you a quarter I can make her give that ring back." That older brother was my grandfather. They went on to have 4 kids and a whole mess of grandkids, and my grandfather lived to meet 8 of his great-grandchildren before passing away from cancer a few years ago. But that was always the story we knew about how they met. My grandparents were married for like 60 years based on a 25-cent bet. There are so many interesting things about their story, but that was the first thing we all knew. Story 15. I went to high school in the early 70s. Our city had just implemented the desegregation of the high schools by closing the only black high school and busing those kids all over the city to the white high schools. Racial tensions were pretty high at my school. Many of the white kids resented having to go to school with the black kids, and the black kids were understandably upset at being yanked out of their own high school and abused. It was lunchtime in the cafeteria. I was sitting at the next table over from where a white guy was sitting. I see a black guy walking up to the white kid. He stops in front of the white kid and says, "Hey, honky." The white guy says, "Hey, N-word." The whole room got really quiet. I could see kids looking around, trying to decide what to do, and where to run or hide, the expectation being that there was about to be a fight. Then both the black guy and the white guy bust out laughing and hug each other. The black guy sits down and they eat lunch together. People looked so confused as they couldn't comprehend what had just happened. It turns out both guys were in drama class together and had decided to troll everyone. My buddy and I did a slightly similar thing. This random guy came to where I worked and I shouted to my colleagues, "This asshole owes me money," and ran up to the guy, and from my colleagues' perspectives, we got into a standoff. Then I cracked him in the gut and he started fighting back. I'm 5'6", and he's 6'5", weighs about 50% more than me, and has arms as thick as my legs. We're old boxing buddies, and he worked down the road from me. It was all impromptu, and I whispered to him on my way over, "Hey, pretend we're fighting," and he obliged. Story 16. In high school, two seniors had been buds forever, got into a fight in the hallway in between class periods. What makes it legendary is that they first met in Taekwondo class, when they were in kindergarten. Movies just show the performative aspects of martial arts. This was just, they were doing flying kicks at each other. It was so brutal. The teachers didn't dare to break them up. They only stopped because they got tired from beating each other senselessly. Story 17. This is legendary in a bad way. One girl from my wife's high school stole a male teacher's pen drive. Found a video of him jacking off on the couch with two other guys also jacking off, and sent it around the whole school. This was in a fairly conservative place and he was not openly gay. He didn't get fired or anything, but she says that he was a really nice, fun teacher up until that point, and afterwards was dry and grumpy to most of the students. On the one hand, you probably shouldn't bring a file of your amateur porn to your job at the high school. On the other hand, what that student did was harmful and illegal on many different levels. Holy crap, what an a-hole of a person. Did she face any consequences or even apologize? I don't think I would be able to look at someone the same if they told me they did something like that. Reminds me of a teacher I had in middle school. A cool guy, lots of fun, really energetic, and always wore Hawaiian shirts for some reason. Oh, and we were super gay. He never talked about it with the students, of course, but he wasn't afraid to just be himself. Unfortunately, the word got out to the parents that there was a gay man teaching their kids and they demanded that the school fire him. If I recall correctly, the school officially refused, but the next school year that teacher didn't return. It was pretty suspicious. Still wonder what happened to him sometimes. Keep in mind that this was at a time when it wasn't yet socially acceptable to be openly gay. Story 18. We had two pretty epic senior pranks in my high school days. The first was somebody replaced the tape of the morning announcements with a close-up of a hardcore anal porn scene. At first, I thought maybe my homeroom teacher was a perv, but turns out it was broadcast throughout the school. Then my senior year, a fellow student got the bright idea to dress up as a gorilla and go up on the roof of the school with a bag of bananas. The SWAT team was called in, and it was kind of scary seeing guys with assault rifles outside of our classroom window. Then someone told me it was just so-and-so on the roof in a gorilla costume. He got in a lot of trouble considering he was 18 at the time. Story 19. A boy in my year did ketamine before our politics exam and got an A. Edit/update was talking to a friend about this, and apparently he spent his entire €4,750 student loan for the first year. He left school after the 5th year to go to uni in a couple of months, most of it on drink and drugs. He also ended up studying business, so at least the drug use was still on brand for his study choices. It's crazy. I know a lot of people who did drugs in school, and it's like, not surprising, but it also is. I remember back in September or October, I was studying in a booth, and when I got up, 4 girls in my year in the booth behind me were cutting lines on the table. I was a little shaken and also disgusted because those tables were not cleaned properly at all. I remember sneaking with friends into a club with fake IDs with the future salutatorian of my high school who would later offer me cocaine after our second drink. And all I could think was, wait, what? You? She went to Yale, so I guess it makes sense. To be honest, incredibly intelligent people who do drugs don't surprise me anymore. Although I think an intelligent drug user is an oxymoron, I know a girl who got in to do medicine at a good uni who does cocaine. My boyfriend went to a private school, and pretty much everyone he knew and himself did/still do drugs. There was such a heavy drug culture there that 4 people who he was in classes at some point died of drug-related illnesses or overdoses. Story 20. He threw a big freaking firecracker near an outlet. Then when the teacher asked what happened, he said that the outlet blew up. The teacher believed him. In the 8th grade, my friend had got a firecracker, one with pull strings on both sides during lunch. We walked into 5th period, sat down, and took attendance. Immediately after, my friend got up from his desk, made eye contact with the teacher, and walked up to the front of the class. The madman maintained eye contact and ripped that firecracker like a Beyblade that was talking mad smack. I'd never seen a teacher so dumbfounded in my entire life. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to this one, please leave it down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.